Thank you to Rocket Money for sponsoring this video. Greetings, my good witches! The name's Francis, Coke Francis. I'm an editor, Twitch streamer, drag artist, and I'm here because painting myself green is the only way I can look good with black hair. Wicked. Wow, I really can't do that in these gloves, can I? The long-awaited movie adaptation of the Broadway musical adaptation of the book I immaturely giggled at in middle school is finally in theaters, and it's a certified hit with critics and audiences. For those of you who don't know anything about Wicked, okay, so first of all, what's it like being straight? Wicked is a reimagining of L. Frank Baum's book, The Magical Wizard of Oz, and its 1939 film adaptation. It tells the story of Elphaba, a green-skinned woman who eventually becomes the Wicked Witch of the West. But she wasn't really a bad witch, she was just a woman of color trying to protect marginalized people from a fascist regime ran by a mediocre con man. Why are you guys looking at me like that? It's not like this is actually happening, you guys. It's a fantasy, hello. Y'all read too far into things, I swear. The last time I saw Wicked on stage was all the way back in 2007, which was coincidentally the same year I had to sing For Good in front of a bunch of upper middle class white parents at theater camp. But thanks to this new movie and Cynthia Erivo's sickening performance as Elphaba, the Wicked Witch is currently in vogue. So I thought it would be fun to take a look at the iconic performance that inspired Wicked in the first place. Long before there was The Wicked Witch of the West, played by Margaret Hamilton, is one of the greatest, most campy, flamboyant villains to ever grace the silver screen. With costume design by Adrian and makeup by Jack Dawn, Hamilton's performance defined what a witch is supposed to look and sound like in popular culture. The character is responsible for giving generations of children terrible nightmares. Drag queens have paid tribute to her throughout the years by giving Republicans terrible nightmares. But where did this witch come from? Who even is Margaret Hamilton? And why do so many artists, particularly queer artists, pay tribute to this busted, cackling green bitch? All this and more right after a word from our sponsor. As a proud weeb, I've spent ages trying to save up for a trip to Japan, but as a proud drag queen as well, I kept spending all my disposable income on wigs. I realized that wigs are temporary, but my dreams of meaningful life experiences are forever. I decided to get on top of my expenses once and for all, and thankfully, Rocket Money was there to help. Rocket Money is an all-in-one personal finance app that helps you cancel subscriptions, lower your bills, and manage your money better. You can create a customized budget in seconds. The app shows you where your money's going at all times and identifies top spending categories with insights on how you can manage your money better. Rocket Money will also notify you about upcoming charges or when your balance is low to help you avoid overdrafts and late fees. I had been paying for an Xbox Game Pass for a year. I don't own an Xbox. PlayStation forever. Once you connect your bank account, Rocket Money identifies all your subscriptions into a single list. From there, you just select the ones that you don't want anymore, and Rocket Money may be able to help you cancel in just a few taps. If you want to save more and spend less, join the over 5 million members of Rocket Money today. So go to rocketmoney.com/queen or click the link in the description box to get started for free. And now, back to our regularly scheduled programming. Before we dive into Margaret Hamilton and her portrayal of the Wicked Witch, I think it's important that you should know. The Wicked Witch of the West was not green in L. Frank Baum's original book, nor did she fly on a broomstick or wear a pointy hat. These were all details that were invented for the 1939 film and subsequently carried over into Gregory Maguire's 1995 book, which was later adapted into a Broadway musical, which is now a blockbuster movie split into 3-hour movies. Capitalism. Basically, the story of Elphaba's persecution over her green skin would not exist if not for this iteration of the Wicked Witch. But did you know that the producers at MGM almost went in a totally different direction? See, The Wizard of Oz was produced in response to the critical and box office acclaim of Walt Disney's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Kind of like how the Daily Wire is now making their version of Snow White in response to the Disney remake. It's gonna be so good, you guys. When it came time to to cast the Wicked Witch, producer Marvin Leroy thought the character should be a cool, seductive femme fatale like Snow White's evil queen. So he persuaded actress Gail Sondergaard to do a costume and makeup test for the film. And girl, of all the times in my life where I've said, "Step on me, mommy," and there have been a lot of those times, this is definitely one of the steppiest and the mommiest. Now, we all know that I have impeccable taste in women, but the producers at MGM were not convinced. They reminded Leroy that bad witches are ugly, so he ordered another makeup test with Sondergaard looking... You know what, I'm just gonna come out and say it, would. Ultimately, Sondergaard turned down the part because she didn't want to make herself look ugly for any movie. Now, you have to understand where she was coming from. Sondergaard was 40 years old at the time, which in Hollywood woman years, you might as well be Mr. Burns at that point. Her whole Ice Queen image helped her get work, and she wasn't about to jeopardize that. So the producers of Oz needed to find an actress who wasn't afraid to play a hateful, ugly witch. Enter Margaret Hamilton. Margaret was born in Cleveland, Ohio in 1902. From a young age, she showed an interest in the performing arts.
When I was 6 years old, I played Sleeping Beauty. That was my first acting appearance, and the last time, if I may say, that I ever played a beauty of any kind.
As a young woman, Margaret, nicknamed Maggie, was also very passionate about education. She loved being around kids and wanted to be a kindergarten teacher when she grew up. Then at age 18, Margaret appeared in her senior play at Hathaway Brown Girls' School in Cleveland, where she played an elderly Englishman to rave reviews. That's right, good bitches. Margaret Hamilton was a drag king. We've done it. Wicked Witch of the West was a drag king. We've done it. We're good. We can all go home now. Well, she was for at least that one show. The encouragement she received from her peers and teachers inspired her to change the course of her life. The next day over breakfast, she told her mother that she wanted to move to New York and become a stage actress.
My mother never even missed a bite of her toast. She said, "You'll do nothing of the kind, dear. You'll go with kindergarten training school the way you've always planned, and when you learn how to earn your living, then you can fool around with the theater all you want." And that was that.
Now, I know that might not be the most inspiring thing to say to a kid, but that advice could have been a lot worse, in my opinion. It's a realistic approach, and it's pretty much what Maggie did. She got her teaching credentials, she taught kindergarten for several years, and she even opened a nursery school in Cleveland. Whatever time she had outside of teaching, she spent it honing her acting chops at the Junior League Theater, and later the Cleveland Playhouse. This was also where she met her husband, Paul Meserve, who is not important. After they saved up enough money, the newlyweds moved to New York, where Maggie could finally pursue an acting career full-time. At age 30, she appeared in a stage play called Another Language. The play was a smash hit, and MGM decided to adapt the stage play into a feature film in 1933. And they brought most of the New York cast to reprise the parts, including Maggie.
Now, I keep telling you, one that comes down, look. And up here, see? Right where you need it, it holds you in.
This was far from the last time Maggie would work on the MGM lot. In 1936, shortly after the birth of their son, Maggie and Paul got divorced. Like I said, he's not important. She decided to remain in Hollywood with her child and work for anyone who would have her.
At $1,200 or $1,500 a week, I knew I wouldn't work much. And I had my young son, and I wanted to work all I could. So I never let them pay me more. And I never went under contract. If you were under contract and you looked like me, you got all the parts where you opened the door and said, "I'm sorry, he's not here. Goodbye," and shut the door. Even so, I got a lot of those parts. I did a one-woman show once, and I had one number called Aprons I Have Worn, bits from all the different maids I had played.
Similar to Shelley Duvall, another esteemed member of the Coke-Francis extended universe, Margaret knew she didn't have what were considered movie star features at the time. She was skinny, she had a big nose, she had a long face, and a slightly nasal Midwestern accent. But Maggie accepted this about herself, and being a star wasn't part of her plan. She was a character actress through and through, and she carved out a space for herself in Hollywood, playing spinsters, maids, and bitchy aunts. Some people might call that getting typecast, others would call it being a gay icon. Then, in 1938, Margaret got a call.
And one day my agent called and said, Maggie, he said, they're really kind of interested in you for a part in The Wizard of Oz. And I said, oh, gosh, think of that. I said, I loved that story from the time I was 4 years old. What is it? And he said, well, the witch. And I said, the witch? And then he said the final thing. He said, yes, what else?
So, yeah, her agent did unintentionally read her to filth, but Maggie was excited to play the part of the Wicked Witch. This was her chance to show off her range as an actress. After years of playing minor characters who more or less behaved like real people, Maggie could go big, broad, and theatrical and really let her freak flag fly. Margaret won the role of a lifetime because she was far removed from that cool, seductive persona that Gail Sondergaard had. Let that be a lesson to you queens out there. Sometimes, if you want to make herstory, you gotta be a loud, scary hag. What makes this iteration of the Wicked Witch so memorable is how much she enjoys being evil. This is something you'll find in a lot of villainous characters that queer folks tend to gravitate to. Frankenfurter, Ursula, Harley Quinn, all these queens who break taboos, cause trouble, and have a great time doing it. Maggie's Wicked Witch is happiest when she's terrorizing Judy Garland, or lighting the Scarecrow on fire, or issuing death threats in skywriting. And just listen to that cackle. This is, essentially, you all know where I'm going with this, a drag performance. It's taking the feminine archetype of the old crone and exaggerating it to the nth degree. But most importantly, as it is with developing any good villain, Margaret knew how to make this character multi-dimensional.
She has lots of things about her. I've always felt that sometimes the children feel that she's a very mean witch, and I expect she does seem that way. But I always think that there are two things about her. She does enjoy everything that she does, whether it's good or bad. She enjoys it. But she also is what we sometimes refer to as frustrated. She's very unhappy because she never gets what she wants. Mr. Rogers, you know, most of us get something along the line, but as far as we know, that witch just never got what she wanted. And mainly, she wanted those ruby slippers.
Like any queen worth her wig, Margaret worked very hard to pull this off. Her makeup took 2 hours every day. She wore green face paint on her face and hands that contained copper oxide, which is very toxic and highly flammable. From the time Maggie got into her makeup, she couldn't even touch her costume without getting green streaks on it, and needed an assistant to help her use the bathroom and feed her lunch. It's called setting powder, you guys. Use it. Good Christ. Most days, Maggie would just have a peanut butter sandwich for lunch that was wrapped in wax paper so that she wouldn't ingest too much of this toxic makeup. God, the 1930s must have just been the worst. While the Wicked Witch had a lot of fun being evil on screen, Margaret didn't have the best time on the set. She was somewhat isolated from the rest of the cast because most of her scenes were with Dorothy or the Flying Monkeys. She didn't even get her own dressing room. MGM gave her a tent with a dirty rug, a small table, and a lamp. Does playing witches in movies just, like, always have to suck or something? Because apparently Angelica Houston also had a terrible time playing the Grand High Witch. Did anybody stop to think as to why these divas might be wicked? Then there came the accident. It was while shooting the witch's departure from Munchkinland right after she says,
I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog, too.
Director Victor Fleming wanted to get everything in one shot, so they couldn't swap in a stunt double. Maggie had to do it herself. The plan was for her to step on an elevator in the floor, and then she would disappear in a puff of smoke and a ball of fire. The first take was perfect, but Fleming wanted to get more takes for insurance. Each subsequent take, there was some kind of technical screw-up until things finally went very wrong. The smoke and fire came on way too early before Maggie was beneath the floor. floor, and that very toxic and highly flammable paint caused second-degree burns on her face and third-degree burns on her hands. So they of course had to haul ass to remove the copper paint with alcohol, which I can only imagine stung like a bitch. Maggie would be hospitalized and sent home for 6 weeks following the accident. Now, most people would have sued over an incident like this. Suing is a long-standing American tradition after all, but in Maggie's words,
I won't sue because I know how this business works, and I would never work again. I will return to work on one condition: no more fireworks.
So yes, a few weeks later, Maggie returned to work. Her hands hadn't fully healed, so instead of makeup, they gave her green gloves. Why didn't they just do that to begin with? Things were all well and good until it came time to shoot the Surrender Dorothy scene. The following story actually broke my brain as a former assistant director, aka the safety person. The Wizard of Oz featured some absolutely state-of-the-art filmmaking for that era, and the technology was at its peak for the 1930s. So back then, they thought it would be a brilliant idea to make a smoking metal pipe look like the witch's broomstick, and that a human person should sit on it. Maggie obviously refused to go anywhere near that pipe. She had a son to raise, and she wasn't about to risk her life over a goddamn movie. We love a queen who has her priorities straight. So her stunt double, Betty Danko, great name by the way, was asked to sit on the pipe for the Surrender Dorothy scene. And during the third take, the pipe exploded. Danko was blown off the broomstick and her hat and wig flew up into the rafters. And as she laid there bleeding on the stage, the wardrobe person came running in saying,
"What did you do with the hat? I have to turn it in, you know."
That's showbiz, baby! Danko would spend 11 days in the hospital and her legs were permanently scarred. So then they hired another stunt double to do the same stunt. Like, just drop the scene at that point. Like, what are you even doing, dude? Margaret finishes the movie. It's released in 1939, and even though it didn't make a whole lot of money at first, it's still a pretty big hit. Audiences around the world loved it, and it garnered plenty of awards and accolades. But Margaret's performance as the Wicked Witch didn't really become famous until the movie started airing on TV throughout the 1950s. During those years, Margaret still kept up her acting career, still getting typecast in the spinster-type roles. She served on the Beverly Hills Board of Education from 1948 to 1951 and was a Sunday school teacher throughout the 1950s. And it was around this time that TV brought Oz and its iconic characters to a new generation. And many young viewers were traumatized by the Wicked Witch. They would cover their eyes and cower behind sofas whenever Maggie came on screen. It's pretty ironic that a woman who loved children her entire life got famous for scaring the shit out of them. And this was actually her biggest fear with playing this role, was that it would give children the wrong idea of who she actually was.
I'm gonna turn around and I'll show my friends that this is a real zipper back here, just like the zipper on my sweaters. There.
There.
Oh, that looks
That's fun.
great.
You know, this is just like a Halloween costume too, isn't it?
It really is.
And now the hat. There. Now there's your old friend, the Wicked Witch of the West.
As the title suggests, Maggie was a good witch. But you know one child of the 50s who wasn't scared of old Maggie? The filth elder and a personal Lord and Savior, John Waters. In Robert K. Elder's book, The Film That Changed My Life, John had this to say.
There wasn't one movie that changed my life. But when I'm asked that question, I usually say The Wizard of Oz because of Margaret Hamilton's performance. She's the only movie star I wanted to be. I'm still jealous of her. She led to my whole belief in all my movies that I made that basically my heroes and heroines are sometimes the villains in other people's movies. Everything was backwards. The fat girl gets the guy, the good killer is serial mom. It's always the reverse character in other people's movies that are heroes. I realized that I was never going to be like the other kids, that I wasn't going to fit in. But it didn't bother me. It was a secret society to know that the villains ones were just much more fun.
Once, when Waters was a child, he went to a friend's birthday party dressed as the Wicked Witch, green skin, black dress and all. According to him, this is the only time in his life he had ever done drag, which I find kind of surprising. When asked about his favorite scene from The Wizard of Oz, he picked where the witch melts, crying out,
Who thought a good little girl like you could destroy my beautiful wickedness?
That line inspired my life. I sometimes say it to myself before I go to sleep, like a prayer.
And so should we all, senpai. Now, of course, this would not be a complete queencokefrancis video without mentioning the influence that the Wicked Witch has had on the drag community over the years. Earlier this year, it was announced that Drag Race UK winner The Vivienne would be taking on the role of the Wicked Witch in a musical production of The Wizard of Oz. No, not Wicked, like an actual stage adaptation of the... You get it. I am living for this red hair here. That's probably what I should have done, but I'm trying to push out of my comfort zone. Also, like I said at the beginning, I never wear black hair. I historically look really bad with it. It's like the one thing standing between me doing a Tifa cosplay. But, I'm not gonna lie, this look kinda eats. It took a few tries to get the green skin right, but I think I pulled it off. The wig is giving old Hollywood. I'm here for it. Anyway, just wanted to fluff myself up a bit. Anyway, the Vivienne shared some thoughts on the inspiration behind her portrayal of the Wicked Witch, who has also been affectionately tattooed on her leg.
She's fabulous. A strong woman, and very misunderstood. Speaking as a gay man, I was always obsessed with the villain. I was never bothered about the heroine. I wanted to be the evil one. And now here I am, literally painting myself green. It's fabulous.
Drag Race US winner Sasha Velour's first exposure to drag was Billy Wilder's movie Some Like It Hot in 1960. But as a child, she didn't even really register that as drag. Also, and I just found out when researching for this video, the drag in that movie was supervised by Barbette, who I mentioned in my drag history video, which you should totally go check out if you haven't seen it already. The algorithm did not like that one. But the first performance that Sasha did consider to be drag was none other than our girl, Maggie Hamilton, as the Wicked Witch of the West. Quote,
"In Hamilton's performance, there is a heightened, out-of-human embodiment of ideas and fantasies that is a part of drag that makes it available no matter what your gender is or what your gender performance is. Drag is really about heightening and a camp quality where you give it your full intention and you make it real, but there's nothing real or practical about it."
And that was exactly how Margaret characterized the Wicked Witch. She had fun with it, and she put her entire soul into being the most heightened, exaggerated, loud, scary witch she could possibly be. And even though she made the performance real enough to give children nightmares for generations to come, she did make a point of assuring them that she was not, in fact, going to kidnap them with gangs of flying monkeys.
How did she talk?
Well, she talked like this. It's very nice to see you.
Oh, that would be fun to be able to talk like that.
You can. They all can. You can do it too.
Somewhat unrelated, but you know what part of that movie freaked me out as a kid more than anything? The talking trees. Those goddamn talking trees. I had so many nightmares about those. I still do, to this day. I'm almost 30. Oh, wait, there was another drag queen who was inspired by the Wicked Witch. I'm blanking on her name. What's her name? Baron Cheadles? Karen Beatles? Whatever, not important. Maggie's final years were spent in New York City. She worked extensively in the theater, appearing in Goldilocks, Showboat, and Oklahoma. She even reprised her witch character in a stage production of The Wizard of Oz. Her last role was in 1974, playing Madame Armfell in Stephen Sondheim's A Little Night Music. On May 16th, 1985, Margaret passed away. She was 82 years old. In one of her final interviews, she had this to say.
I don't think I would ever want to be what you might call a leading lady in the complete sense of the word, because to me the most interesting thing to do in life is the character. They're all so different, and they have their ins and outs, and we all know people like that, I think, in life, too.
She truly knew the ins and outs of being a witch, and she served that character well. And in the year of our Lord 2024, she gets to be the star of her own blockbuster movie. She gets to be played by Cynthia Erivo, a queer black woman with the voice of an angel. And I think Erivo's casting, as well as the Wicked franchise as a whole, says a lot about how women and queer folks and racialized people can see themselves in an outsider like the Wicked Witch. Not in the whole, like, terrorizing a child and her dog way. I mean, I do that every Tuesday. But I mean, maybe you're denied certain opportunities because you don't fit a specific standard for your gender. Or people fear you because your very existence somehow disrupts the status quo. Governments might exploit that fear and treat you like a scapegoat, a hateful, wicked witch. But there's always more to you than they see. So be loud, be defiant, cackle in their faces, and most importantly, never stop celebrating your beautiful wickedness. And now, let's celebrate the winning comments from the last video. Phoenix Vance 6642 says, "You know Francis is a real one when they revive Gilbert Gottfried from the dead, just to read out a single quote." Rock and Roll 1343 says, "Here's some drag names for Mrs. President Reagan. Irene Amazing. Please don't demonetize me, I bleeped it out. Trixie Trickledown, Nancy Swallows, Miss Gore Bitchoff, and my favorite, Jody Hinckley." And finally, Emily Allen 5447 says, "The gasp I gusped when I was nonchalantly watching my favorite tired drag queen and up pops Kelly Neidert, who I last saw when she was maybe 8 and our moms were best friends. I got a GTFO Texas." Okay, I have so many questions. So, like, were you guys friends? Or were your moms friends and you just, like, knew her by proxy? Was she always like this? Was she worse? Better? What's her mom like? What did they do? What's their situation? What's their deal? What is the tea? Please, God, I need to know. You too could be featured in the next video. Leave a comment below. I will pick my favorite ones and give you a shout out next time. But if you would like to guarantee your name be featured at the end of every video, please consider joining my Patreon. If you join any of the membership categories that are conveniently named after Fallout protagonists, your name will be featured at the end of every video. You might also get other cool stuff like access to my Discord, behind the scenes content on how I make my wigs, ad-free and uncensored versions of my videos. So if you love my videos and my drag, you can support this channel directly by clicking the link to my Patreon in the description box. If you would like to see me simp for my favorite game characters and get visibly frustrated in real time, please follow me on Twitch. I stream most Saturday afternoons Pacific Standard Time, and I am still raising money for the Palestinian Children's Relief Fund. Mitchell is still here, don't worry, he's just moving cities for now. If you want to see even more of my clown mug elsewhere, please consider following me on Instagram or TikTok. My handle for all of the above is at queencokefrancis. If you enjoyed this video and you haven't done so already, please transport yourself to a magical world full of talking inanimate objects. When an older woman approaches you and tells you to give her your awesome shoes, flee in terror, but not before going ahead and unzipping your pants and dick slapping those like and subscribe buttons as hard as you can. Thank you again to Rocket Money for sponsoring this video, and thank you to all of my patrons and subscribers who have helped my channel grow and thrive the way that it has been. We're wrapping up 2024. I cannot believe the amount of channel growth I've had in just the past 6 months. When the year started, I definitely did not expect to hit 70,000 subscribers. I definitely did not expect to be able to make this my livelihood. It's kind of surreal, but it's amazing, and I would not be here if not for you guys. The fact that over 70,000 people clicked a button to say, yes, I want to see more of this is, like, kind of insane to me. So thank you so much for helping me be here. It absolutely means the world to me, so thank you. And, of course, as always, until next time,